Madam President, could I say, for the information of my colleagues, we are working on a unanimous consent agreement so that we can take up the hate crimes issue, the F-22 amendment and Republican amendment, and both sides are working very hard to try to get that resolved. But, you know, this is a very interesting time in America and in the Congress of the United States. We have a very important defense authorization bill before us. We have the hearings for Judge Sotomayor. We have the Health Committee reporting out its legislation. And probably there's as many major issues before the Congress that I guess there may have been more, but I don't recall them in the years I've been in the Senate. So today we had an event that is in the you can't make it up category, and I read from the CNSnews.com. It's entitled, "Joe Biden, we have to go spend money to keep from going bankrupt." And I quote completely from the news report from CNSnews.com. Vice President Joe Biden told people attending an AARP town hall meeting that unless the Democrats-supported health care plan becomes law, the nation will go bankrupt, and the only way to avoid that fate is for the government to spend more money. Quote, "And folks, look, AARP knows, and the people working here today know, the president knows, and I know that the status quo is simply not acceptable," Biden said at the event on Thursday in Alexandria, Virginia. Quote, "It's totally unacceptable, and it's completely unsustainable. Even if we wanted to keep it the way we have it, it can't do it financially. We're going to go bankrupt as a nation," Biden said. And then he went on to say, "Well, people that I say that to say," quote, "What are you talking about? You're telling me we have to go spend money to keep from going bankrupt," Biden said. The answer is yes, I'm telling you. Well, you know, that's a very interesting story, but the thing that probably makes it more interesting is the Washington Post story today entitled, "CBO Criticized Democrats' Health Reform Measures." And I quote from the Washington Post story, says, "Instead of saving the federal government from fiscal catastrophe, the health reform measures being drafted by congressional Democrats would worsen an already bleak budget outlook, increase deficit projections, and driving the nation more deeply into debt," the director of the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office said this morning. Under questioning by members of the Senate Budget Committee, CBO Director Douglas Elmendorf said bills crafted by House leaders and the Senate Health Committee do not propose, quote, "the sort of fundamental changes that would be necessary to reduce the trajectory of federal health spending by a significant amount," unquote. Quote, "On the contrary," Elmendorf said, "the legislation significantly expands the federal responsibility for health care costs." So here we have on the one hand, the Vice President of the United States today telling the American people that we have to spend money. We have to go spend money to keep from going bankrupt, and yet the Congressional Budget Office says that the proposed changes would weaken our economy and expand the federal responsibility for health care costs. The chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, Kent Conrad, Democrat, North Dakota, has taken a leading role this morning. After receiving Elmendorf's testimony on the nation's long-term budget outlook, Conrad turned immediately to questions about the emerging health care measures. Quote, "I'm really going to put you on the spot," Conrad told Elmendorf. "From what you have seen from the products of the committees that have reported, do you see a successful effort being mounted to bend the long-term cost curve?" Elmendorf responded, "No, Mr. Chairman." Asked what provisions would be needed to slow the growth in federal health spending, Elmendorf urged lawmakers to end or limit the tax-free treatment of employer-provided health benefits. That has a little echo associated with it. Elmendorf urged lawmakers to end or limit the tax-free treatment of employer-provided health benefits. I don't know where that idea came from. Calling it a federal, quote, subsidy that encourages spending on ever more expensive health packages. Key senators, including Conrad, have been pressing to tax employer-provided benefits, but Senate leaders last week objected, saying the idea does not have enough support among Senate Democrats to win passage. Elmendorf also suggested changing the way Medicare reimburses providers to create incentives for reducing costs. Certain reforms of that sort are included in some of the packages, Elmendorf said, but the changes that we've looked at so far do not represent the sort of fundamental change, the order of magnitude that would be necessary to offset the direct increase in federal health costs that would result from the insurance coverage proposals. And then, incredibly, the Senate Majority Leader, Harry M. Reid, Nevada, dismissed Elmendorf's push for the benefits tax. Quote, what he should do is maybe run for Congress, unquote, Reid said. You know, Mr. President, I've disagreed from time to time with the Congressional Budget Office. I have agreed from time to time with the Congressional Budget Office, but I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate to use that kind of language from the Majority Leader of the Senate about the hardworking people. This wasn't just Mr. Elmendorf's product. This was the product of endless nights and days of work on the part of the Congressional Budget Office. If you disagree with him, as I have in the past, disagree and give your reasons for doing so. But for the Majority Leader to say that, quote, what he should do is maybe run for Congress, frankly, I don't think is an appropriate response to the incredible work that these individuals are doing. But Senate Finance Chairman Max Baucus expressed frustration that the tax on employer-funded benefits had fallen out of favor, in part because the White House opposes the idea. Critics of the proposal say it would target police and firefighters who receive generous benefits packages. And if the tax is trimmed to apply only to upper-income beneficiaries, it would lose its effectiveness as a cost containment measure. Quote, basically, the president is not helping, Baucus said. Quote, he does not want the exclusion, and that's making it difficult. But he added, we are clearly going to find ways to bend the cost curve in the right direction, including provisions that will actually lower the rate of increase in health care costs. Ideas under consideration include health care delivery system reform, health insurance market reform, and empowering an independent agency to set Medicare reimbursement rates, an idea the White House is shopping aggressively on Capitol Hill. But Baucus is not giving up on the benefits tax. Quote, it is not off the table. There's still a lot of interest in it, Baucus said. Well, you know, what this is all about, what this is really all about is heading in the wrong direction with the wrong fundamentals of what problems with health care in America are. A fundamental misunderstanding. The health care in America is the highest quality in the world. I went to MD Anderson with the Republican leader and the senator from Texas, Senator Cornyn, and at MD Anderson, one of the great premier institutions in America where cancer treatment is incredible, there were people there from 90 countries around the world. Most of those people, Mr. President, were wealthy people. They had the choice of going anywhere in the world to get the treatment they felt they needed. They came to the United States of America. That's true of the Mayo Clinic. That's true of many other medical facilities and institutions in America. So the problem with health care in America is not the quality of care. The problem with health care in America is affordability and availability. The cost of health care continues to increase, inflationary of nearly double digits. We cannot afford it. the vice president is right when he says it's unsustainable. But when the president says those who want that we want to do nothing, obviously is not what the view of Republicans are. We believe you have to do a lot. We believe you have to do a lot. And that is increase competition in America so that people will have choices, affordability, and availability, and not a government-run healthcare system. So the architects of the legislation passed through the Health Committee and being considered by the Finance Committee and came to the House were fundamentally wrong to start with. They were not attacking the problem of health care in America, and that's the cost. And preservation of the quality of health care in America is what needs to be preserved. So how do you install competition? Install competition by letting people go across state lines to shop for the health insurance policy that they want. That's prohibited now. Why is that? Why is that? The other is wellness and fitness. We are in agreement, I want to say, in a lot of issues that have not been highlighted in debate on this floor. Republicans and Democrats, wellness and fitness, insurance policies that will encourage such things, rewards by employers for people who practice wellness and fitness. In fact, probably one of the best known individuals in America today is the CEO of Safeway. They have had an incredibly successful program for their employees where if they practice wellness and fitness, they don't smoke, they regularly engage in exercise, including membership in health clubs, guess what? They are rewarded for doing so. And the overall costs of health care in Safeway have gone down. And they've told every insurer to come. If you want to insure our employees and encourage wellness and fitness and let them make a choice, do so. That's the essence of what we have to do. The problem in America with health care is that too often they are fixed costs, there is no competition, and there are incentives to drive up the cost of health care. We all know that. We all know that there are certain procedures which are more rewarding than others, and the system is gamed, and that there's billions, tens of billions of dollars of fraud, abuse, and waste in the Medicare system that has been identified on numerous occasions. We also know that medical malpractice is a problem, and we need to reform it. Some years ago, the state of California, not known as a conservative state to say the least, enacted fundamental medical liability practice reform. And guess what? It has resulted in cost savings. It is well known that physicians practice defensive medicine, which many times accounts for 10, 15% increase in those costs for fear of being sued. And the new technology then, which has made such tremendous advances, then indeed increases costs because they are overused, because that physician knows that unless, or in some states, in some cases and places, unless every kind of test is administered, whether that physician thinks it's needed or not, is going to be administered and prescribed in order to avert the eventuality of appearing in court and not having administered all the necessary or what the plaintiff lawyers believe is necessary tests and procedures. So, look, we know now from the Congressional Budget Office for the second time that this proposal is not going to cure the health care issues of America. It's time we went back to the drawing board. It's time Republican and Democrats sat down at the negotiating table, not calling one or two senators down to the White House, not trying to pick off one Republican or two Republicans, not doing that. Now, I know that still, with this plan, the Democrats may be able, the administration may be able to pick off a couple of Republicans and get 60 votes and enact this massive movement of the government takeover, eventual takeover of the healthcare system in America. Or we can sit down together for the first time with incredibly knowledgeable people. There's nobody that knows more about health care than our two doctors, Doctors Coburn and Barrasso. There's nobody that knows more about health care than Senator Enzi, who has been our leader in the Help Committee, Senator Alexander. There's a lot of knowledge on health care issues that we could sit down together, scrap this idea, scrap this spend money to keep from going bankrupt, scrap this proposal that the Congressional Budget Office says the legislation significantly expands the federal responsibility for health care costs, and that the measures would worsen an already bleak budget outlook, increasing deficit projections, and drive the nation more deeply into debt. That's not the proposal that the American people want to pay the penalty for. So events today have been very interesting. And the fact is that what we need to do now is sit down together for a change, and I've done it in the past. I will admit, on issues that are not of this magnitude. I don't know if there's been an issue that consumes 1/6 of the gross national product of this country, the gross domestic product of this country, that I've been involved in. Certainly other major issues. Certainly working together with my friend and colleague from Michigan on defense authorization and other measures to preserve our nation's security. But this issue, I must say, causes all others to pale in magnitude. But that's also the reason why we should sit down together and not pass legislation that is purely on a partisan basis. And let's listen to the experts. Let's listen to the Congressional Budget Office. I know of no one who believes that there's bias in the Congressional Budget Office. As I say, sometimes I've been very disappointed or disagree with him, but I know of no one who thinks that they aren't doing the very best they can under the intense pressures of getting these numbers out. I want to take this moment to salute the Congressional Budget Office, whether I agree or disagree with him, for the incredible work they've been done in the past. I hope at some point to be able, when this health care debate is over, to enter in the record the thousands of hours that have been put in by the Congressional Budget Office and the staff there in trying to come up with their best assessment so that we can legislate with the benefit of the knowledge that, frankly, only they possess. So let's listen to them. Let's listen to other outside experts. Let's recognize the fact that this issue has badly divided this Congress, but also listen to the fact that the American people are becoming more and more skeptical of the proposals that we are considering or that have been reported out by both the House and the Senate Help Committee, and maybe go back over and start over and do something that the American people can believe in, and that we can tell the American people that we put their interest first. Mr. President, I note my friend, the senator from Michigan, on the floor, and I hope that we can give a ray of hope to our colleagues and let them know how they're going to be able to spend the rest of the evening. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President, Senator from